Hey, we're back for another episode of the Bad Ideas podcast with Art de Baca. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so you're the host of the AAMA podcast. Want to give us a minute or two on what you talk about and where it came from?
Yeah, of course. So the AAMA podcast is the Arta Asked Me Anything podcast. I am honored to have a podcast named after me. And it came from a coffee chat, actually, with my co-host. I work with a guy called Carl
That's
Boutte, and
amazing.
he is a bit of a retail expert. And I sat him down for a coffee one day, which turned into, I think, a 3-hour chat. And then we were kind of talking about short form or whatnot. And I was really curious about the retail industry. And we landed on this concept where I'm a very much beginner and he's somewhat of the expert. And actually this dynamic of me asking the questions that he perhaps hasn't been asked in a while, and then me also learning from this somewhat knowledge pool, led to this really fun concept where we discover what's going on in retail and I get to pick his brain every week, which is great.
That's amazing. I mean, we talked about this beforehand. I think like you're a real good idea person, which is exactly what we want here to discuss the bad stuff that we have coming up. But it's amazing that you've already done so many things so early in your career, which is always like a relative thing. I think in entrepreneurship, particularly when we're talking about really bad ideas, um, everyone always feels like they're underqualified for things, but you can't be qualified to do something new, and the fact that you're already doing anything, let alone multiple things, is really amazing. So excited to brainstorm with you on this one. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So order of events, uh, we'll surprise ourselves with this bad idea. I hope there's no spelling errors, so I read it properly to you. Then we'll spend a couple minutes talking about everything we can think of as to why it's a really bad business idea. And then we'll flip the script and see if we can turn it into something good. Does that sound good?
I can't wait to roast this video.
All right. Fingers crossed. Here we go. Let's see what we got. Okay, it is Nap Pod Networking. We host networking events in Nap Pods where attendees engage in business discussions while half asleep. What's your reaction? Any thoughts?
My instinct is it's not defeat the purpose. I mean, a nap pod, that's a very interesting idea.
I mean, it's kind of counter. Go for it.
I feel like whoever came up with this was thinking get people in a chilled environment.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the business networking side of it would be a bit awkward. Like, okay, nice to talk to you. I'm going to go to sleep now. Like, when do you end the conversation?
Yeah. No, I think we're gonna have a good point. You're mentally not in a social state when you're trying to rest. Like
Yeah.
meeting new people is one of the more high stress situations and high energy situations out there. So they're innately in conflict, which doesn't make sense. As you think about it from a business perspective, um, like if you're trying to monetize a networking event that's based on napping, like who do you think about as the end consumer? Like who's actually going to pay to participate in a nap/networking event? Like is there anyone that comes to mind?
Well, yeah, now I'm curious. Who would they be targeting? Because this could work in like a business setting. Like every Thursday we have our nap pods available. Go have a random chat with someone who works in the firm, or we'll bring in people. I'm not too sure about the profitability because I don't know where they're putting it. You're right. But actually,
Yeah,
the more I think about it, I actually think I think they could make a quick pivot and make it actually okay.
look at this. So we have our first true natural idea person. First comment found a way to make it a legitimate business.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'll tell you a quick story that comes to mind in this one. So I was working at a tech startup. I think there were like 3 people on the marketing team. I was leading marketing for the company, and we had 12 engineers at the time. And one of the engineers, one of the smartest guys I've ever worked with. Like one of those people you could ask any question in the world and they'd give you a dissertation on it. Like just
I
turn
love
around
those
and start.
people.
Yeah, he was amazing. But middle of the workday, and we had an open office concept, so like engineers in a row, all sitting together, and the marketing sales guys and CEO on the other side. He decided to take a nap in the office. And like didn't announce anything. He just put his feet up on his desk and like closed his eyes and rested his head back. We didn't realize he was sleeping until we heard the snoring. And you've got like 20 people in a room and a dude in the middle of it just taking a nap. Um, I think that's the first thing that came to mind when I thought of this, because the conversation around his napping was social. And I maybe wonder if that's what these guys were thinking. Like, you don't network while you're napping, but after you nap, you talk about the nap as a conversation starter. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean, firstly, from your story, I think we've got a good insight into what kind of character this guy was, not only as an engineering in his career, but also in undergrad. He was 100% a guy sleeping in the library.
Yeah.
I see that clear as day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, yeah, it's giving like you go to meditation and then afterwards there's a discussion, discussive kind of vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking like these nap pods as well. How close are they putting them?
I
No,
don't
I'm
know. I
also
don't have
getting
technicals,
awkward
but
vibes there.
yeah. Hey, do you want to
Would
sleep
you go
next
to
to a
something
transit?
like
No, no, never. Yeah, I
that? I
think
might go.
they're really just to try it.
Yeah, just try it, I reckon.
Yeah, I think you're braver than I am. I certainly wouldn't pay to go nap near someone. I think even for free, even if it was a really comfortable like nap pod scenario, I still probably wouldn't go take a nap near strange people. That's just me.
What if they put it in a really nice building and you are kind of guaranteed that some impressive people are going to be there? What if Elon Musk might come?
So you're saying you'd pay to take a nap next to Elon? I
Someone
think a lot of people would. I think a lot of people would. So
there.
that's a good point. I don't think I would do that still. And maybe that's a personal thing. Um, so I mean, we don't have a target buyer, but we do have a persona, the person who takes a nap in a library, as you pointed out.
But also
So
a brave person, someone who probably like me thinks you can have an interesting conversation with anyone and is willing to try things. We might come up with a problem there if it's only a try once kind of thing. If it's a novelty, that's not going to be very sustainable in the long term. No repeat.
there's some problem solving. So in sales, I think like, salespeople have really grueling routines, and they're kind of rejected in perpetuity for the most part. Which takes a lot of energy. Like, you need to be in the right mental state to go through that if you're in like a high volume sales situation, and you need to expend a lot of energy to try to stay positive. So when the person does give you time, you're protecting the image and the messages that you really want the right way. Um, those people, I was reading a book from a certain real estate entrepreneur that will not be named on this podcast, but he was talking about how he uses every lunch to prospect. So his recommendation is that you eat out every single day at a different place with strange people, because that's time you could use to sell and build like business relationships. Kind of channeling that into nap pods. If you're a salesperson and you're burnt out in the morning, maybe there's some business appeal there. If you go and pay $10 to take a nap, but it's still technically productive because there's a networking bit at the end
Yeah.
that has some ROI for you.
You know what
What
my
do you
issue
think?
is with this idea? It sounded like something that could just be replicated by a business and turned into like a business amenity, which I mean, we already know that companies like Google have their napping and their slides and their whatnot. But I mean, the type of people that would be going to this, what's to stop? Maybe if they target entrepreneurs, maybe if it's like a workspace, like a WeWork place, and they offered it. But again, it's just sounding like a bit of a business amenity, novelty kind of thing. I'm struggling to imagine a place that would become known for their nap
Now
pod
pods.
experience.
Yeah, a place, and the service wouldn't really work because you're not going to pay somebody to install nap pod networking in your business. What about, putting on your communications hat, where your skill set really is? If you're the CEO of a nap pod location company, how do you communicate this? One, who do you think you're communicating to? Is it entrepreneurs? And say it was entrepreneurs, how do you go about communicating with them in a way to draw them into your service? Like, what channels do you use? How do you message it? What value do you communicate? Like, how do you bring people to this idea?
Okay. Channels, I'm thinking there could definitely be like some kind of newsletter discussing the benefits of a 45-minute nap in the middle of your workday, boost your productivity by this much. I think I think the video aspect of this could either scare people or help people get the right idea. That's an interesting one. You know, someone might be quite daunted by the prospect of 15 nap pod things in a room. But I think the person you want to be targeting with your communications is someone who likes to speak to strangers, not afraid of a bit of an unusual experience, kind of like the wild and wacky.
All right. So it's wild and wacky nap potting newsletter.
Yeah.
Is kind of the angle. All right.
I think there's a niche of people who are really into self-development and productivity but also traveling and the fun kind of things in life that you could get onto this. I think you could get a few like young entrepreneurs who are like nomads and trying their digital agencies or something on board with this idea.
Interesting. Have you ever done, you've done like a yoga class before, I assume. I feel like everyone's done at least one.
Yeah, I've actually done a yoga teacher training.
There you go. So you walk people through. There's something, and I'm not a big yoga class guy. I did one in college one time because a friend wanted to go and didn't want to go alone. But it's almost like going to a movie. I think you don't know everybody in the theater going into it, but going out of it, you suddenly have this shared experience. So there's some kind of like, it's not camaraderie, but you know, if it's a really good movie and you all clap at the end, you're kind of like, that was really good. And you have a point of commonality or connection with these people because you can talk about something they experienced with you. Yeah. I'm almost wondering if that's how this starts to turn into a positive. Yes, maybe it's wild and wacky, but you're all napping together, and if there's some kind of like guided component to it or some point of commonality, you go into it strangers and you come out of it people with some shared experience, which could turn into some kind of value for you. What thoughts come to mind?
I agree. And I think you're right about the guided aspect. I think because also if you think about a nap, you know, some people nap for 10 minutes, some people nap for 45 minutes. So there's also that aspect of how are you ensuring that people are actually going to be done at the same time and having the conversation. Whereas if you turn this into some kind of 30-minute guided nap where it's a super deep sleep, you maybe there's an instructor there that is saying a meditation for you. I'm personally a huge fan of like sleep meditation tracks. If you have like maybe a meditation kind of sleep experience, and then it's okay, now like come back to your body, and now we're going to talk a bit, how are people feeling, and then like talk to the person next to you, blah, blah, blah. I think that would work.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now it's more of like a class than just a networking event, or it's like a class for networking. We take that a step further. There's this guy who we're going to tag when we post this because he just popped into my mind. His name is Mark Bowden. He's in the UK, and I think he's like one of the foremost mental coaches for footballers in the world. So yeah, he focuses a lot on like mindfulness for optimal performance under high stress. And he has a couple applications that are pretty wild where, you get him in a recorded capacity, but the same things he works with, like his big professional clients, you can kind of get on your phone if you want to. And I'm almost wondering, we were talking about mindfulness and like learning about understanding yourself before the podcast. I wonder if getting access to someone like that almost puts you into a nap state, is the shared experience that fosters the networking. Then like you're learning something, you're sharing an experience, and you're kind of resting all at the same time with people. What do you think?
I think that's where the value would be coming from. And I think that's the way that you tackle some of the problems that we're seeing with the nap thing. If it's just solely nap, you know, are people paying for that? What time are they like waking up out of it? Are they going to be too sleepy and not very sociable? But as soon as you turn in that aspect of let's make this a mindfulness thing or a shared experience. What was I thinking? I was thinking it could be it could be a meditation kind of thing.
Well, while you're digging, what just came to mind, I was in a shared workspace that brought in a massage therapist, and they were trying to promote their own business, but They took over one of the conference rooms, and people could kind of book 15-minute like free micro massages where they'd go in and kind of meet the therapist and get a massage. And that sold out in like 8 minutes after they opened up the slots for
Amazing.
the whole day. So like people do, like, massage is a draw. And then if you start drawing parallels between the two, like massage is very relaxing. It's something you do during the day. It is with a stranger. I mean, you probably wouldn't get a massage next to a stranger. That's a little weird, but like that, the parallel is you're getting into this relaxed meditative state during the workday, and it's not unusual. Like, it's not for the wild and wacky. So maybe there's something we can borrow from that to make
Yeah.
something like this a little more appealing.
See, it's come to my mind. My idea
Okay.
was quite wild and wacky. I was thinking, oh,
Yeah.
yes, meditation, that's a whole level, but let's do hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
But I don't think that would be as successful as just a simple meditation would be. But I think the hypnotherapy side of it could be very interesting for those people who are really focused on their productivity, really just snap them into, oh, if you're having a bad day, like, let me go to this nap pod thing. That's like the best hypnotherapy you can do in 15 minutes. And then you also like discuss it with people around you. Instead, it turns into an event of snaps you into super productive when maybe you're not having the best day. And then also you've got the networking aspect, which to me kind of sounds like it could be the best hour of your life. That could really lead to some incredible connections or feelings.
Shared hypnotherapy and like a relaxation concept.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking?
And then maybe frame it as guaranteed to change your life. You leave that place and you feel better, and you've probably met someone that, could be a great connection, great friend, great business partner.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good idea. And people would pay for something like that.
I would definitely pay for something like that.
Yeah, I probably would too. Have you read much about hypnotherapy?
I haven't read that much. I try to do the mindfulness apps and kind of hear about that. But I'm very open to hypnotherapy. I think that would be very interesting, because I have read this book, which is potentially fairly related, called Psycho-Cybernetics, which describes our human brains as almost like air conditioning units or like computers. Either one works. But we have these programmed limiting beliefs where we go about our days, and even though we want to, maybe affirm, oh, I'm so happy, I'm so successful, I'm so talented, deep down, we really don't believe those things. And it takes a lot more than just saying it to change those settings. And so like an air conditioning unit, we might have a really good week, and then we might return to that default setting, and it's not really our fault. So I like that concept of, if we really have to do a lot more than that, we have to do a lot more work on ourselves to change those limiting beliefs. So maybe this is the first step. I mean, if it's not therapy and if it's not hypnotherapy, those are probably the more high-end ones. Those are probably the more high-end methods after someone has already tried to do the individual activities of proving that they've got discipline, or challenging themselves with this thing to show that the action is contrary to their belief, and that's positive for them.
Yeah, interesting. So like an experience where you're just kind of guided through it. You don't have to teach yourself. And you can do it with a bunch of other people who want to experience the same thing you do. You're getting validation because they're there along with you. You're getting a shared connection because you have a shared experience. You get a network opportunity, and you're exposed to this thing that you might be curious about, but not have the drive to do on your own beforehand. I mean, that's quite a bit of value. That's not too bad.
Yeah. That's turned from us really questioning why we would go to a nap pod, what weirdos we must be, to, oh my gosh, yes, sign me up.
Yeah, I think it's framing, and we definitely injected value with the hypnotherapy there, but we're now framing this as like a positive. It's giving you a ton of value. It's not something you're taking and you take a nap. You don't give a nap, but hypnotherapy and shared experience and networking are all things that are given to you. So there's value.
Reframing.
Might be worth, I'm working mine there. I'm reading this book. I'm midway through it right now, called Dianetics. It's a lot about. It's very nerdy and dense, but it's fascinating. When you were just talking about limiting beliefs, everyone kind of has their own. I've read like 4 or 5 books on the subject. Um, Part of growing as an entrepreneur, you run into limits like on your own to kind of set new ceilings for the business, and sometimes you spin wheels trying to fix the business when you really need to fix something inside yourself. Um, and I think this is probably the most interesting book I've read on the subject because they explain limiting beliefs as actual biological reactions. And the insinuation is that
Oh my
um,
God.
even your individual cells, like in your hand or your foot, actually have their own level of subconsciousness. And that's where limiting beliefs actually impact you because there's like a fear. I mean, imagine a bacteria and that has a fight or flight response. Like the cell in your finger also has a fight or flight response, and all of those collectively can be like massively and subconsciously inhibiting to your own progress. And
Wow.
they profess, I haven't gotten there yet, but they profess to have a theory and their own kind of therapy that allows you to learn how to influence these things. And like I could imagine a class where you go through something like that, or you're kind of guided through something like that to be super high value to a lot of folks, like entrepreneur or not. It doesn't matter. It'll make your life better.
Yeah, this is this is so online with what we were speaking about earlier, and I think these are like my two main interests that I have in life, like self-development. How can I become the very best? Self-development. How can I become the very best version of myself? Almost believe that I am like limitless, as lots of these gurus like to tell you to believe. And then business. And you're right in saying so many people have those ceilings for themselves, whether it's they reach a certain number of clients or a certain revenue per month, and they think like, oh, that's my limit. And actually, it's so interesting when it comes to it's actually us. It makes you kind of wonder why some people are so successful in life and others aren't, or at least believe that they can't be. So I think that's right. I've done quite a few experiences to try push my mental limits. Like I've done this 10-day silent meditation thing. I trained as a yoga teacher. I also did 75-day. I didn't do the hard. I did 75-day soft challenge. All of these kind of experiments for me personally to kind of learn what my own limits were and realize each time that you think a certain limit is placed on you, you can actually go further than that. And I think that for business people is, if they could get that in a 1 day or 1 hour experience, I think that's something that would be super valuable for them.
What do you think? I mean, we're no longer nap pods. Like we've kind of reinvented this
Yeah,
whole
I'm
thing. I
sorry
think
to the nap pods, but
the nap pod is like it's a vehicle. But what do we name this? It's not nap pods. What is it called that captures the value and like the three gives that we're putting out there? Any good ideas?
I was thinking mindful moments, but I think we could do better
That's
than
kind of
that.
catchy. A little alliteration.
It's okay. It's not the clearest of what would be happening in terms of like maybe the networking afterwards.
Yeah. I think my mind keeps going back to the fact that you take a nap. And that the reason this is such a bad idea is because the focal point being on the nap removes all the gives and all the benefits of like having a shared experience with someone or learning anything. So by removing that word, you open the door for new things, and maybe including a word that insinuates there will be some kind of mental benefit to doing this. Makes it a little more attractive. I know we're just talking about the name, but the name goes a long way in cases like this.
Elevation station.
The elevation station. Yeah.
Come here and have your vibrations elevated. Your business connections elevated as well.
Yeah. It depends on who's behind the business. It could be taken the wrong way. But that's really interesting. I think I think we're going to bump into a period over the next, 8 to 12 months where the nature of employment changes significantly. And I think employers are going to, I mean, it'll be a good thing for everybody. Employers are going to have to fight a little harder to make sure that the good people on their team are taken care of and that they're important. And I think it's beyond just retention. It's kind of like developing your people in a positive way. So I do think there's a market for things like this that are a little unique. They help differentiate your business. They help develop your team in a way that they couldn't be developed elsewhere. Which I think it probably comes down to the name. And that's the biggest point of leverage. if you're calling it nap pod, it's dead on arrival. But if you call it something a little different,
Well, also
then you showcase.
with our idea, have we moved away from it being a pod?
What do you
Because
think?
when it comes to mindfulness, I can't not imagine those yoga cushions, like a circular thing that you sit on.
But a pod might be safe. I think going back to that guy Mark that I was talking about, I did one of his, and he recommended you go into like a dark, quiet place and kind of isolate. And I think if you did have a pod where you could isolate, you might be a little more comfortable, a little less self conscious that other people are watching the strange facial expressions you're making while you're going through whatever
Yeah,
the progression is. Uh, I don't know. I think a pod could have value. It just if you call it a nap pod, I think that's what kills it for me. Because the value is all
mindful
taken
pod,
away. A mind pod, brain pod.
mind pod, mind pod is good. I
Yeah.
like mind pod. Yeah,
All right. All right.
yeah.
Yeah.
No
Maybe that's
jokes. I think that one's good.
mind pod. All right. All right. So in summary, our bad idea is the nap pod.
Mhm.
And it's a bad idea because naps are things you take, and there aren't enough gives to justify a cost value. The good idea is a mind pod, because you are given a shared experience. You're given the opportunity to new relationships that can change your life, and you are given a hypnotherapeutic experience that teaches you more about yourself. So triple benefit, all changed in the word. Does that sound
Yeah,
right?
that's very powerful. That just one word has changed the whole connotations and the value proposition.
Yeah. Well, so you have your businesses. I'm super grateful for you kind of turning this into something crazy. So maybe this will be your third one. Um, but you have a couple things going on now, and I think you'll have a few big things going on in the future. How do people stay in touch with you if they want to learn about you or work with you or get you to help consult on their messaging?
Yeah,
Where do they find you?
you can find me on LinkedIn at Art de Baca. I'm sure I'll be linked below. And I also have my email, which is arta_baca30 at hotmail.co.uk. And yeah, I think I'm really interested in helping other businesses kind of brand themselves with the communications. As Nick has said, I like to think I'm quite an ideas person. So a lot of my work so far has come very naturally from me having a conversation with a business person and really kind of instantly realizing they could be doing this, or here's the opportunity for them. So yeah, I'm sure there'll be a business coming from me soon at some point in the future, which is really exciting, but that's where you can find me for now. Thank you
Well,
so
they're
much for
here.
having me on, Nick. This has been
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Great to have you here. And they can follow your podcast too and hear you
Yeah,
brainstorm on the fly in the meantime.
yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is awesome. We'll do it again soon.
Thank you. Bye bye, guys.